Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bruin Dash, the UCLA football show on Dash Sports TV. I am Sam Connon, one of your hosts, joined again by Jack Perez. Jack, how are you doing today?
Hey Sam, doing great as always, although it's starting to get hot again. I don't like that.
I know you always find a way to complain about it. It's okay.
It's always hot down here. I don't know what to say. I mean, why can't we go live in Washington where it's nice and cool and there's like 20,000 people?
Hey, feel free. Well, there's a lot of UCLA news that has come out in the past week since our last show. There may not be games, but there's definitely some action. UCLA is suing Under Armour for $200 million for damages, breach of contract. So we will discuss that. And then also, there are players starting to transfer away to schools who are playing this season. And maybe the Big Ten will be one of those conferences. So we'll hit on all those. But starting with the biggest news of the week, Under Armour versus UCLA. That is, it's heating up, Jack. So what do you think? Is UCLA doing the right thing by suing Under Armour for that much money right now?
UCLA is not doing the right thing. UCLA is putting students' resources, athletics resources into this lawsuit that honestly don't think they will win. This thing is a 25-page lawsuit that's basically arguing against every one of Under Armour's arguments. But Under Armour can easily just say, you guys aren't playing. There's no way we have to honor this contract. You guys aren't playing. UCLA is arguing that Under Armour is arguing that both force majeure applies and doesn't apply here, while also trying to argue that force majeure applies and doesn't apply. I don't know if you read this thing, Sam. Have you read through it? What are your thoughts about it?
I mean, I've got through the basics. Haven't got through all the legal terminology yet. I'm not going to law school. I'm not planning on it, at least. So I'm no expert, but I can say UCLA is absolutely doing the right thing here. I mean, Under Armour was just being so ridiculous when they tried to back out of this a few months ago, and everyone knew it. It's because they're faltering financially. They've been investigated by the SEC. They've been investigated by multiple federal bureaus just on their poor finances, top to bottom, lying about how much they're making, which coaxed UCLA into this deal in the first place. Dan Guerrero and UCLA Athletics a few years ago said, well, that's a lot of money. Let's take the deal, when they probably didn't do their best due diligence and see that Under Armour was kind of falling apart. And now Under Armour is falling apart, and they're trying to back out on this deal and basically screw over UCLA in the process. And UCLA is having no part of that. I think it's a great decision by Martin Jarmond, Gene Block, whoever it is who's calling the shots in this lawsuit. I think it's really your only option. You can't just have Under Armour back out, take a couple $100 million and say, well, it's okay. Maybe it's because they need the money. It's like, no, UCLA needs the money too. You're talking about for the committing resources from students. I mean, what do you think this is? That's what they always do. They take tuition and pour it into scholarships and facilities. This is the same thing. They're taking tuition, they're taking other money that the school is making and putting it into athletics. Part of that is this lawsuit, which will help them, if they win, make hundreds of millions of dollars.
Usually when they take that money and put it into athletics, it's going into something tangible. You know, it's going into the Mo Austin. It's going
into $200 million not tangible enough?
I'm just saying they're not going to win this suit. First of all, I don't believe they're going to win this suit. It's a tough sell. They want to get it to a jury. I don't see how a jury honestly sides with UCLA on this one. One of the biggest points that I saw in the lawsuit was UCLA saying, we would have never entered this contract with Under Armour had we known that they were faking their financial records. Or we would have terminated it once we knew, if we had a similar offer on the table. UCLA doesn't care about Under Armour's financial misdeeds or whatever. They just care that Under Armour is not paying them because of it. That's the bottom line. They don't care that Under Armour is being shady. They care that Under Armour is being shady and not paying them.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's completely justifiable. I don't. If Under Armour's argument is that UCLA is not playing, we're not getting our money's worth, why haven't they backed out on literally every single contract? Why haven't they backed out of their contract with Auburn? Why haven't they backed out of their contract with Boston College? Why hasn't Nike backed out of their deal with with USC. There's no precedent for this. It's just Under Armour saying, oh, we committed way too much money. Let's try to back out of this and just cite XYZ. And it's not going to work because this is there are a lot of similar contracts and a lot of similar companies, and none of them are doing this except for Under Armour. So like I said, I'm no lawyer, but there's no way that Under Armour can get away with this.
The problem
honestly,
is that
I don't think Under Armour has the money to pay UCLA, but they're gonna lose this lawsuit, and someone's gonna have to pay. They're gonna be in debt. They're gonna be declared bankruptcy. Whatever it is, they're gonna fall apart. UCLA is going to get that money, and rightfully so.
The problem with the other deals is that there's not that much money on the table, so that the apparel companies can handle this loss. So they're not calling in the force majeure clauses that they probably have in those contracts. Whereas Under Armour's deal with UCLA, and they've done the same thing with Cal, are so big, and they're too much. They're honestly way too much for what they thought they were getting in the first place. But they're so big that they can't afford to lose any football season. They cited baseball, women's basketball, men's basketball, and football as the core 4 sports. And seeing as baseball didn't even finish 50% of their games, they waited till the day that it was 100 days from the last time UCLA baseball played. Under Armour had to get out of this deal now because they knew they weren't getting any of their money's worth. And they have the rights to. That's what
there are a lot of people who haven't got their money's worth during this pandemic. Under Armour is not a special case.
Yes, but Under
Armour hasn't got its money worth with Auburn. They haven't got their money's worth with Boston College. And
but they're going
Nike has it with Oregon.
They're going to with those schools because those schools are going to play football in this fall. Whereas UCLA
Nike and Oregon, is Nike getting their money's worth with Oregon?
Nike is a completely different company. Nike is way, way richer than Under Armour is. Nike has a long history.
Well, yeah. So exactly. So Under Armour is doing this because they do not have money and because they're falling apart. Not because it's a breach of contract. They're doing this because they're trying to save their skin, save a few pennies. I mean, a lot of pennies, but still.
UCLA has breached the contract. Now, it's not UCLA's fault that they breached the contract, but they have.
Everyone has breached the contract. If you're going by that definition, yes, every contract between an apparel company and a school has been breached.
Every company can call it into play if they want. That's the thing. Only Under Armour is actually doing it. Every company could do it, but they don't want to. That's the thing.
So you are a student at UCLA.
Oh, trust me, I would love nothing more.
No. I'm just saying, just hear this out. You paid tuition last year, and you got online school in the spring. You didn't really get the education you paid for. Are you going to back out? Are you going to withhold your money and say, no, I'm not paying you, UCLA? No, you agreed to pay that money. Even if you're not getting what you initially thought you would, as many of us are or aren't in this pandemic era, Under Armour just has to bite the bullet. And financially, they probably can't. But someone's going to have to fork over that money because it is owed to UCLA.
Whether or not UCLA wins this case, that's a big issue. I don't think they're winning this case. This is going to drag out for a long time. But Under Armour has already committed to providing uniforms for 2021 season. UCLA has said that they have not gotten them. I don't know if that will be a big factor in this case. That is a big thing that has to be seen because UCLA has said that they have either not gotten all the materials, even though it's now August, although none of UCLA sports play until 2021 at the earliest at the moment. And they said that what they have gone has been defective. I don't know what's happening with that. If UCLA can get that money back or get those uniforms back, we'll see. I don't know if Sam's here, but I'll keep talking about this. Under Armour, please give UCLA the uniforms. Please give them everything they need because you will look like the good guys in this. You want to really set it up if this does go to a jury case. You want to bring the good guy attitude, basically. You want to bring the, hey, we did this when we didn't even have to. Whereas UCLA is just complaining. You know, this is a lot of money. We'll see what happens. I think we got Sam back here, thankfully.
I'm back. Don't worry.
Whew, man. I sucks having to carry every conversation on my back like this.
Well, I don't know. I guess we'll end up having to wait a few months.
I'll
Who
say
knows
one
how
last
long
thing
this
on
goes
this.
on? Some years.
I'll say one last thing about this. This could also all be a negotiating tactic from UCLA. Under Armour could have been saying, you know what, we don't think you'll sue us, so we'll just take this deal and run. Whereas UCLA is saying like, no, we'll sue you, and that will bring you back to the table. Hopefully, get UCLA at least some of the money back, because switching apparel companies right now, UCLA would be in a weak position.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, I think it would even if UCLA loses, and I don't think they will or should, but even if they lose, I'm just glad that Martin Jarmond, once again, whoever it is calling the shots, is really sticking up for UCLA. They're not backing down from the fight. It kind of shows like we mean business. We're not some second-rate school you can just bully around. Like, no, we are UCLA. We have over 100 national championships. We are in the Pac-12. We are a Power 5 team, and we're not going to take your crap when you say you're going to back out hundreds of millions of dollars. So UCLA is using its brand to its advantage and just pushing as hard as it can. Even if it doesn't work out in the end, I'm glad they're doing that at the very least.
I disagree. Although Martin Jarmond also has a good relationship with Under Armour from his time at BC, so maybe that's helping to push things through. But I don't see how this lawsuit really went through under Jarmond. I think this is a higher up issue right now.
Well, very well could be. I guess we're going to have to wait on the result. Could take a while. We'll see if that money ever comes in, if those uniforms ever come in. I guess we'll find out at the very soonest, January. That's when UCLA football will be getting back on the field at the earliest, at least. But they will be doing so without Jake Burton, their starting right tackle, who transferred to Baylor last week and is pursuing eligibility for this season. They start, well, in a couple days, really, a lot sooner than UCLA does. So, Jack, I don't know. Burton's gone. What do you think that means to UCLA? And do you think there are others who will follow?
This is a good move for Burton. If he wants to get a good draft stock, really finish out his career on a high note. Baylor's a good program right now. Got a new head coach, the LSU defensive coordinator from last year. You saw the LSU defense all last year doing really well, led them to a national championship. This is a good move for Burton. I don't see it happening with a lot of other UCLA starters or even bench players. There's not enough time for them to get acclimated to a new system if they want to go play in the ACC, the Big 12, the SEC. There's not a lot of time for them to get on those rosters, learn the playbooks, and really show out. They're better off just sticking through UCLA system, getting to play in the spring or winter if we do end up playing then. I think even if we end up playing a 6-8 game schedule, they'll be better off than trying to transfer now, maybe not getting playing time, get stuck on the bench, lose out a whole year if they even get their eligibility cleared, which NCAA has been clearing a lot of them so far. But I don't know if it would happen for every UCLA starter.
Yeah, I mean, UCLA is obviously not the most talented team in the country, or the Pac-12 for that matter. There aren't a lot of guys who can leave here and go be a starter somewhere else. But maybe it's not even about playing time. Maybe it's about practices, reps. These UCLA guys might not be able to get on the field for anything more than 10 hours a week in the next few months. If they want to stay in shape, if they're going for the NFL, even if they don't play this season. You have guys who are opting out and not playing at all and then going to the NFL in April, May, whenever the draft ends up being. So it's not like guys need to leave and put on a show in prime time and play super well for a Power 5 team as a starter in order to go to the NFL. They just need to stay in shape. So maybe there are other guys who might not even be starters, who are just guys who need to change a pace, and this is their excuse to do it. I think there are definitely guys that follow Burton to other Power 5 teams. It's a little late for them to be eligible to play this season, but they would just be happy to practice. You see Dorian Thompson-Robinson has shown frustration on Twitter saying, man, I need to get out there in the practice field, and they're not letting me out there. The parks are closed in LA. The team time is limited. So whether or not it's another key player like Jake Burton, which we can get to in a second, I think there are going to be guys who leave just so they can play some form of football.
I don't see it. You don't leave Westwood for that. You don't come to UCLA as a football player. Really, we're not the big program in LA. USC is the big program in LA. USC is the program you go to if you are that 5-star in LA, the one that thinks they're going to get drafted top 10. UCLA has had top 10 picks. Don't get me wrong. We're good at developing talent at times. And if you are a 3-star, 4-star guy in LA and you're worried about getting sat on the bench at USC, you come to UCLA, you become a star, you get drafted. I don't see that on the roster right now. I don't think there are guys that are worried about getting playing time if they want to get drafted. Now, to your point of bench guys that just want to get reps in, you can still do that at UCLA. You still expect a spring or winter season. There's no reason to go risk yourself right now in the fall when you haven't been training all summer or even just the past few weeks like most of these programs have, being in competition with guys that have been training and that know the system, that know the coaches, that know the area. You're acclimating to a new school in September where a lot of places have already started. It's not worth it. Just sit it out for a little bit. You'll get your time to shine. Playing in the spring or winter when there's less competition against the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, you get those primetime games now. You get less time up against the NFL. You get less time up against every other conference. You're going to look like a lot better prospect then.
Yeah, but Jack, if there's one thing that we've seen from the last 6-7 months of this pandemic, a lot of people don't have patience. It's really hard to say, oh, just wait it out. It's fine. You'll probably get that in a few months. Nothing is certain. Absolutely nothing. If these guys can say, oh, like there's a 50% chance of playing in January, but there's a 100% chance of me at least getting on the practice field and like learning a new system and broadening my horizons as a football player if I go to Texas Tech. Maybe they do it. I wouldn't blame them. These aren't guys who are being greedy and necessarily saying, oh, like I need to be on the biggest stage possible. I need to be in the primetime game so I can get drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. That's not really an issue for UCLA or a lot of these schools. But there are guys who either just want to stay in shape or there are guys who know that maybe they're already in grad school at UCLA. This is their last year of eligibility. Maybe they could come back next year and use that extra year of eligibility, but the degree is going to be done this year anyways. They might want to move on. This is their last chance to play football. I know that we put all these athletes up on pedestals. They're giant stars. They're huge, but they're 21, 22, maybe 23 years old. They're kids. They just, a lot of them just want to play football.
You're right.
And I don't blame them.
You're right about a lot of that. But why would you leave LA for that, man? You don't
because
go to,
you can't play football
Tech.
in LA.
You don't go to Texas Tech for where they're guaranteeing football right now when they have no clue. They've had a lot of practices across the country shutting down because they've come back to it. They've had cases in Iowa State. They're not going to be practicing right now because there's a lot of cases in the community. They can't guarantee you football. So you're going to go move to some random city in the Midwest rather than staying in LA to go to online school, maybe have practices, maybe have games, rather than stick it out in LA. I don't see it. I don't see that at all.
You're right. Things can change at any point, and this fall season could blow up. But it's next week. It's very soon.
Oh, it's very soon, all right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll touch on more of that later, but I guess we'll really just talk about Jake Burton, what he meant to this team, this offense. So
hold on,
I don't know.
Let's address this question in chat. Isn't it possible that some of these moves aren't about the pandemic? Players just want to join a better program and team. Possibly. That's probably not what's happening right now. Guys that came to UCLA knew what kind of team they were getting into. Haven't had the greatest recent history. Chip Kelly hasn't won a non-conference game, as I've mentioned in the past on this show. There's no really better program to go to right now in terms of location, academics, and possible playing time. I don't know, Sam. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, academics. Everything's kind of
places you can.
Everything's online right now, so that's a little iffy. And then I don't know. There are programs that will be playing at the very least one game, very easily a full season at some of these places, even if it's a small school in the middle of Arkansas. You saw, was it Central Arkansas against Austin Peay this past weekend? That was prime time on ESPN. There were guys playing football and everyone loved it. And in terms of public health, maybe that's the wrong choice.
It is the wrong choice.
Yeah, but if you're a 22-year-old kid who just wants to play football, maybe you can suck it up in the middle of nowhere in the South that you've never been to for a couple months. If you just want to extend your career, you just want to play a game.
At that point, why did you not go to those schools in the first place? Guys don't really come to UCLA coming for the football program. I mean, they come to play football, but there's a lot of other things that UCLA offers besides that kind of sways guys to the school. You don't, if you wanted to go play in Central Arkansas or in the South or in the Midwest, you could have always gone there. There was no stopping you. And
well, now there's only a few months left. Maybe these guys can. Maybe they've already gotten their undergraduate degree from UCLA, so maybe they just go as a grad transfer to some tiny FCS school, and maybe they just ride it out for a few months just for fun. I don't know, but Jake Burton going to Baylor.
I mean, I'm happy.
I think that's really going to hurt the UCLA run game, especially. But I mean, you have a veteran tackle, so the pass game as well. But he really helped turn around the run game at UCLA. Under Jim Mora, those last few years, they really did not have anything resembling a running attack that was threatening in any sense. And then Joshua Kelly comes, and you get Jake Burton on the right side, and the consistency there was just really what UCLA needed. And it's been a bright spot in the Chip Kelly era so far. So it's tough to see him go, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely happy for him, though. Great program, great choice.
I think he'll definitely be a good fit there. I don't know if he'll start. I don't know if he'll even play, but it will be interesting to see. I think it's a good fit. So the last topic we're talking about today, we've touched on it a little bit already, but Pac-12 still not playing a fall season. SEC, ACC, and the Big 12 are, and the Big 10 may join them again after backing out a few months ago, or about a month ago, even less. The Big Ten, there are rumblings that they could play this fall. They could play in a couple weeks. They could play starting in Thanksgiving. We don't really know. But there are at the very least discussions, and things are still up in the air. Maybe not so much in the Pac-12. There's no buzz coming out of there yet. There's a lot of drama with Larry Scott, the conference commissioner, again. But I don't know, Jack. Do you think that the Pac-12 should at least consider coming back or ultimately come back this fall?
No. The Pac-12 should not be back until 2021. You do not have the time, nor the resources, nor the persuasive power, if you're the Pac-12, to convince your schools to do that. The Pac-12 has a lot of academically inclined schools. Now, other conferences do have some, but let's be honest, the SEC does not have the Stanfords, the UCLAs, the USCs, the Cals, the Washingtons that the Pac-12 does. I can't see Larry Scott convincing schools, even if he had a perfect plan in place. Unless he had utopian bubbles out in Hawaii where he could fly the guys, you're not playing this season. You can't risk that.
See, I do think that it is probably unrealistic. It is unrealistic. But considering it isn't the worst thing. Just discussions, just keeping the possibility open. You don't know. Maybe the ACC gets 3 weeks in and there's no cases.
The ACC has already had cases. They haven't even played a game yet.
Once the season starts.
Practices.
But, I mean, you don't know what can happen. You really don't. And if the Big Ten right now you're the Pac-12, they're comfortable in not playing. I understand, because the Big Ten's also not playing. So they're not alone there. But if the Big Ten reverses their decision, that puts a lot of pressure on the Pac-12 to do the same. And they would be alone. They would be the only Power 5 conference sitting out this fall, and that would have repercussions lasting far beyond this fall in football and in other sports too. So I don't know enough about the medical data to say, oh, you absolutely can come back. It's obviously safer not to play, all things considered. But if they do have the resources and they are willing to put them in a very timely manner, obviously it's a rush. I think you have to keep the possibility open. If it's just a 1% chance, it's a 1% chance. I'm not saying you have to come back. But if other conferences are reversing their decisions, then what's the medical info that they're getting? Maybe the Pac-12 should come back. We don't know. So I think it's best to keep the door slightly open, just so they don't end up in the dust when this is all done.
Do not keep that door open. Here's what the Big Ten got. The Big Ten got a phone call from the president saying, hey, open back up. You know who didn't get that phone call was the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is not going to get the resources nor the support from either fans, nor students, nor any governments on the West Coast to open back up. So there's already that. You already have to contend with all of that. There's no way you're convincing the students, the presidents of the universities that, yeah, we can bring the athletes back here, but regular students, no, they have to stay home. That's not going to fly. That's not going to fly in these institutions. Don't leave the door open. All you're going to do is cause chaos. Look at what has happened with the Big Ten. They had an 11-3 vote. They've shown that, hey, the majority of our presidents didn't want to play. But they've left that door slightly cracked, like, oh, maybe we'll come back, maybe not. And their fans have just gone berserk. They're demanding that either they come back and play immediately or that they're risking all these kids' lives for nothing. And I'll be honest, I think they're risking their lives for nothing. But that's up to the conferences to decide. Just choose one way or another and stick with it, please. Don't tease your fans like this. Just choose and stick with it.
Well, I think the reason the Pac-12 didn't get that call from the president is it already has a bit of the Pac-12 already has a bit of an image problem, a reputation problem. I mean, I don't think that even USC UCLA, big rivalry game, is that even top 10, top 15 in ratings for rivalry games? You have early season games in the SEC that get better ratings than that. Michigan will play Appalachian State and will get better ratings than that. So I don't know. That's a lot of East Coast bias when it comes to Big Ten, Pac-12. I wouldn't take that too seriously, as in they're getting so much more support.
But that's even a better reason to not come back early. Sit out this fall. Come back in the spring or winter with a better plan, with a solid plan, and be there by yourselves. Be the only Power 5 conference. Be on the screen. Be in front of everyone's eyes while the NFL playoffs are kind of there, but play during the day, play during prime time. Get attention on the conference. Show them how good you can actually be, because when you're playing in the fall, you're getting those Pac-12 After Dark, which that's great. Pac-12 After Dark is magical, but when it's midnight here, it's 3 a.m. on the East Coast, and they're not watching Pac-12 After Dark. They're just watching the highlights. Comments are saying 100% agree, Sam. It's a very bad look if Pac-12 is the only Power 5 conference not playing. It's a great look if we're the smart ones. There's no problem with being the smart ones.
There is a problem with being left out of college sports, from the upper echelon of college sports, for years to come.
We've been left out of the upper echelon
maybe
of
that's
sports
maybe that is the price to pay. I understand if it is, but just accepting that as fate is a little closed-minded. So maybe there's a way back. There probably isn't. I totally understand. I'm not saying that you have to come back because other teams are playing. But if other conferences are getting enough info to say, well, initially we thought this, but let's come back because we have new information, we have new resources, then why can't the Pac-12?
I'm still waiting for one conference to explain to me in a clear, precise way why it's okay for athletes to come back and some students to come back, but not everyone. And to allow, why don't they just let all their fans come into the stadiums then? Why aren't they doing that? Because they know that it's not viable. So why are you bringing anyone back right now? Wait it out.
Well, we'll see if the Pac-12, there are any rumblings of them coming back. I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. But there will always be UCLA news for sure, and we will be here to talk about it. Thank you once again for joining us on Bruin Dash. Jack, thanks again for showing up in the hot weather.
Always a great pleasure to be with you, Sam. It's great talking to you.
All right, so you can follow us at Dash Sports TV on Twitter, or find us online at connon-sports.tv. You can follow me at Sam Connon on Twitter. You can follow Jack at Jack C. Perez. Thank you so much for joining again, and have a nice week.